Hi and welcome to another episode of Storytime with me, Komoko. As Sikhs, it's really important that we look after our mind, our body and our soul. And we can do this by eating healthily, by exercising and praying to Waheguru. If we do all these three things, we can accomplish some fantastic things in our life, just like the person whose story I'm going to read to you today. Fauja Singh, the oldest person to have ever run a marathon. Got a beautiful book here today, and it's by Simranjeet Singh and it's illustrated by the very talented Baljinder Kaur. It was a sweltering summer. Little Fauja Singh sat under the shade of a banyan tree in his village in Punjab, eating mangoes and watching the other children play. Fauja was smart and funny. He and his friends liked to play cards and marbles while sitting in a circle and telling jokes. But Fauja longed to join them when they ran and jumped. He longed to play hopscotch, to rescue a runaway cricket ball, or to run with a kite flying high across the sky. He wished he felt as strong as his name, which meant warrior lion. When he was very little, his parents thought he might never walk. Month after month and year after year went by, but Fauja did not take a single step. Aunts and uncles, grandmas and grandpas shook their heads gravely and said, "It's too hard. He's too weak." But Fauja did not listen, and Fauja did not stop. Instead, every morning he would listen to his mother who said, "You know yourself, Fauja. You know what you're capable of. Today is a chance to do your best." Fauja practiced walking outside his family's hut every day, staying in the mud to soften every fall. He practiced and prayed for months. He could feel himself getting stronger inside and out. Then a few days after Fauja's 5th birthday, a wonderful thing happened. He took one step and another, then another and another and another. Fauja Singh was finally walking. Fauja's parents were so proud that their son understood what he was capable of and that he worked hard to achieve his goals. They were thrilled Fauja could walk because they knew it would make his life easier. His parents were so happy, they shared prayers of thanks and distributed prasad to the entire village. Once Fauja began to walk, his legs needed strengthening. He practiced walking around the banyan tree every day. Some bullies thought his legs looked like sticks and they teased Fauja by calling him Danda. But Fauja did not listen and Fauja did not stop. Though his legs were weak, Fauja's spirit was strong. As Fauja got bigger, it was time to go to school. But the school was miles away from his small village. There were no buses. Fauja's legs couldn't carry him all the distance and they couldn't bring the school to him. So while Fauja's friends went to school, he got his education on the farm, learned to plant, plough and pick all types of crops. "It's too hard. He's too weak," said his neighbours. But Fauja did not listen and Fauja did not stop. He'd walk behind the buffaloes, planting seeds and getting stronger with each step. Fauja worked and worked and worked. He walked and walked and walked. He farmed and farmed and farmed. And when Fauja turned 15, the whole village witnessed a new wonder. Fauja could walk an entire mile. Fauja progressed leaps and bounds and he took many steps over the next few years. He got married. He had children and he even had his own farm. Fauja loved life in Punjab. He loved flying kites in open fields with his children. He loved the excitement of a close cricket match, playing with friends, and he loved the joy that filled the village during the harvest festival of Vaisakhi. He taught his children how to farm, just like his father had taught him. Every morning he would tell his children, "You know yourselves and what you're capable of. Today is a chance to do your best." He cherished every step in life's journey. As time passed, Fauja's children grew up and moved to places far away. Fauja, who was usually lively and energetic, grew sad and lonely, especially after his wife died. He really missed his family and he wanted to be with them. But to leave the village at the age of 81 and go and live on the other side of the world, could Fauja do it? His friends were worried. "You're too old, Fauja," they said. "It's too hard for you to move away." But Fauja didn't listen and Fauja didn't stop. He knew it was time for him to take a step in a new direction. One day, Fauja got on an aeroplane for the first time and went to live with his family in England. It was cold in England and almost everyone only spoke English. Fauja was used to having many friends, but here he felt like a stranger. His family were busy with work and school, and Fauja found himself with nowhere to go, nothing to do. Fauja passed his days in the living room staring at the television. He had never been so miserable. As he was flipping the channels one day, he saw something new. A whole lot of people were running around the town. Was it a fire? An accident? No, Fauja realized. They were running just to run, and they all had big smiles on their faces. Fauja knew at once he had to try this. He put on his shoes and walked out the door. He took one step, and another, and another, and another, and another. Fauja Singh was running. The wind flowed through his beard, and for the first time in a long while, a smile appeared on his face. After that, there was no stopping Fauja. He began by running a little bit every morning. As he got stronger, he ran faster and longer, and when he felt especially strong, he would run again in the evenings before eating dal and roti with his family. In England, it was common to see people running for fun, but not many of them looked like Fauja Singh. Some people would stare and some people would laugh, but Fauja did not let that bother him. He ran and ran through the streets and parks of England, getting better and better every day. He ran races and he ran for fun. He ran with his friends and he ran alone, always with a smile on his face. Fauja loved running. He liked the new friends he'd made. He enjoyed exploring the new country he now called home. And he loved how being outdoors reminded him of his childhood, of playing hopscotch and flying kites in the fields. It had been a long time since he'd felt this happy. More than anything, Fauja loved the challenge. He had always enjoyed pushing his limits, whether it was learning to walk, doing farm work, or moving to a new country. Now he was ready for his next challenge. He started training with a coach, Fauja Singh, who had run many marathons and had trained others to run marathons too. There was no looking back after that. Fauja and Fauja ran together many times a week. After months of hard work, 89-year-old Fauja Singh became one of the oldest people to ever complete the 26.2-mile London Marathon. Fauja ran the London Marathon 5 times after that, getting faster each year and setting new records each time. By this point, Fauja was famous, as people in England followed this man with a beard, turban and disarming smile running great distances. They began to learn more about his Sikh background. Around this time, Fauja learned that some people in the United States were attacking Sikhs for how they looked. Fauja knew this was wrong and he wanted to help, but he wasn't sure how to share his message. He couldn't read, he couldn't write, he couldn't speak English, but he could run, and at once Fauja knew what he had to do. He decided to run the world's biggest marathon in New York City. By now, Fauja was 93 years old. Could he still run 26.2 miles? Many news reporters didn't think he could. But Fauja didn't listen and Fauja didn't stop. Every day he practiced with his coach. Every night he dreamed about running, and every morning he reminded himself of his mother's words. You know yourself, Fauja, and you know what you're capable of. Today is a chance for you to do your best. The big race finally came on a chilly November day in 2003. Fauja Singh stood at the start line. He felt ready, knowing that he had prepared as well as he could. He stretched in anticipation and recited a prayer, envisioning what it would feel like to cross the finish line. Just then, someone shouted racist and hateful words at him. Other people joined in. Fauja brushed it off, and he knew he had a strong spirit. He ran, one foot in front of the other, and then disaster. The tender blisters on the sole of his feet had burst, and he was in a world of pain. He kept going, limping to the finish line. He made it, but it was his slowest time ever. Fauja was so exhausted that he collapsed right after the race. Medics wanted to rush him into an ambulance and take him away to recover, but Fauja preferred to stay and recover in the company of his trainer and fellow runners. Fauja made it back to England, and for the first time in a long while he was sad. Fauja wanted to run fast and show the world what Sikhs could achieve. But he felt like his poor performance at the world's biggest marathon made him look weak, and that he had failed his Sikh sisters and brothers all over the world. Maybe they were right, said a voice in his head. Maybe it is too hard. Maybe you are too weak. The voice made Fauja doubt himself for the first time in years, and it tried to convince him to quit running altogether. But Fauja did not listen. Inspired by his coach, he set a new goal for himself. He was going to be the first 100-year-old person to ever run a full marathon. Fauja ran every single day for years. He ran and ran. He practiced and practiced. He trained and trained, and when the day came, he knew he was ready. On October 16, 2011, 100-year-old Fauja Singh lined up at the start for the Toronto Waterfront Marathon. He was so excited that it felt like an electric current was running through his body. He ran along the course, and people joined him for a few miles at a time to show their support. He welcomed them with a smile, offering jokes to adults and high fives to children. As he ran, Fauja thought about all the things people had said he would never do. They said he couldn't walk, but he did. They said he couldn't farm, but he did. They thought he was too old to run, and yet here he was, running 26.2 miles at the age of 100. Fauja had never been more sure of himself. He hoped that children and adults everywhere would see him take on this difficult challenge and persevere with grace, something he had learned through his faith. It took him just over 8 hours, but he finally did it. Fauja Singh finished the Toronto Marathon and set a new world record as the oldest person to ever run a marathon. He stood tall and proud, holding tightly to his medal. He had faced many challenges in his 100 years, but Fauja Singh always kept going. Wow, what a fab story. Fauja Singh is just amazing, isn't he? I'm going to end with a few words from Fauja Singh himself. Fauja has actually contributed some lovely words to the book, so I'm going to end with a few words that he's written himself. All my life, people set limitations on me. They said I would never walk. They said I would never farm. They certainly never thought I would set records with my running. No matter what people said, I always believed in myself. I knew my body better than anybody else. I knew what I was capable of. I kept on trying. I never gave up, and I always held on to hope. I wish the people from my birthplace in Punjab could see me now. The boy they teased for not being able to walk became the oldest person to ever run a marathon. I was the first 100-year-old to ever run 26.2 miles. Doctors couldn't figure out why I had trouble walking as a child, nor could they figure out why I was able to begin walking and then running. I think of it as a reminder that all our bodies are different, and so are our experiences with disabilities. I'm now 108 years old, which means I'm probably more than 100 years older than you. Can you believe that? My secret to a long and healthy life has been to take care of my mind, my body and my soul. Every day I challenge myself to think, to exercise, eat healthy and pray. I have really enjoyed my long life, and I hope that you have a long and happy life too. I love for you to take care of yourself, try your hardest, and always choose yes when you meet a challenge. And who knows, maybe one day you can break my record for the oldest person to ever run a marathon. Nothing would make me happier. Thank you for listening, and I really hope you've enjoyed today's story. Bye.